Meghan be humiliated by the palace when they attend the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in June? That's a really interesting question to consider, and one I've thought about as I've kind of looked through and pondered why in the world the palace gave Harry and Meghan an invitation to the Jubilee. They've done nothing but cause trouble, be annoyances, get the public outrage, say mean things about the royal family and the Queen. They've just been nothing but pains in people's backsides. So why in the world did the palace extend them an invitation? Well, I have an idea. I think the palace is kind of going to use this opportunity to really put Harry and Meghan in their place and explain to them, you left the royal family, you left the monarchy, and yes, we all know this is a ploy for you to get content for Netflix, but we don't care because you know what? This is kind of an opportunity to sort of humiliate you in a way. And I think that's maybe what the palace is thinking. And maybe that is a bit far-fetched. And I'll give you a couple reasons why I think that might be the case and why Harry and Meghan are even attending at all. It's kind of almost a surprise there. They harped about their security. It's too dangerous for us to visit the UK. So why are they doing this now? Well, I'll explain all to you guys what I think about this situation and how I think the palace has truly played the best game against Harry and Meghan. So hi guys, if you haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany and we talk about everything related to royals here. So that's news, gossip, fashion, jewelry, television shows, movies, and history. We will do it all here, and I am going to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in June. I have my plane tickets. I'm getting my schedule all prepared. I plan to go to as many of the sites connected to royals as I can. So if there's anything you'd really like to see, let me know in the comments. I have an utterly packed schedule I'm working with. It's almost overwhelming me a bit. I wish I had an extra day because I don't think I'll even get a day to break. But I really want to get as much content as, great material that I can for you to really just kind of give you guys a front row seat to what it's like in London around the Jubilee. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, guys. So Harry and Meghan got an invitation and accepted an invitation to the Jubilee. And people were shocked and kind of lost their minds. It was announced on Friday that Harry and Meghan and Prince Andrew would not be on the balcony with the Queen. And it was also stated that would just be working members of the royal family. So this would be the Cambridges, this would be Sophie and Edward, the Earl and Countess of Wessex. This will be, the Duke of Kent, the Duke of Gloucester, the Princess Alexandra, the Queen, if she can make it, hopefully she can, Prince Charles and Camilla, obviously. And so it'll just be relegated to them. And of course, the Cambridge children will be there as well. And there's been some insinuation that Edward's children will be there too. And they are very, very close with the Queen. So I could see that happening. And this is in stark contrast to the 2012 Jubilee, which was the Diamond Jubilee. And on the balcony, we only saw William, Catherine, Harry, Charles, Camilla, and the Queen. And this was a very different change. Usually we see the balcony packed with people, but Prince Charles has very much wanted to streamline the monarchy. This will happen after the Queen dies. And really kind of, I think it's a way to let them know that, not having a ton of people on the balcony kind of gives the insinuation that all these people are somehow getting something from the taxpayers, which the monarchy doesn't want to do. They're kind of in a precarious time. So they kicked, a lot of people off in a way to both kick off Andrew and Prince Harry. And I really think this whole thing is super interesting. Why Harry and Meghan accepted the invitation? Because kind of not being out on the balcony is really a kick in the seat to them. I'm sure it galls them that they have not been put on that balcony. And the palace's reasoning is very, very sound. Although, again, Harry was on that balcony in 2012, so I'm sure he's looking at his life now compared to 2012 and really maybe even regretting some things. But I think the palace is playing this very, very smart here. They're playing the long game because what they're really preying off of is Harry and Meghan's desperation. So they obviously know that the Queen wants to see her grandson and her great-grandchildren. I don't think she probably cares to see Meghan, but she wants to see the rest of them. And who can blame her? She's 96. She's coming on to the end of her life. She deserves to see her grandchildren, especially the one that Harry and Meghan named after her without telling her. She definitely deserves to at least see that great-grandchild at least once. So why did Harry and Meghan accept this? Well, I think there's a couple of reasons why. Harry and Meghan, despite having enormous amount of fame and attention, have really struggled to gain a foothold anywhere. They were not invited to the Met Gala, both of the events, that one that was in 2021, one that was this year. They weren't invited to the Oscars. They weren't invited to Obama's birthday party and a lot of other major events. And so you kind of wonder, they kind of burst out after Megxit, and it seemed like they were going to become Hollywood A-list. That was their goal, I'm sure, is to gain all these great Hollywood friends. They would go to all these fantastic parties, being seen out and about. They would be these mega producers, and that completely hasn't happened for them. And, you know, this is like the one invitation they probably got. And because even the one that they got from the NAACP Awards to accept this award, everybody's like, well, A, what did you do? Because nobody knows what they did to get that award. But it also became apparent that there was a connection with Sunshine Sachs, which is Harry and Meghan's PR company. And most likely they were paid by, the award was given to them in coordination with the PR company. And Harry and Meghan didn't deserve that award in the slightest, which I think makes complete and utter sense. So they didn't get all these invitations that they anticipated. And I think their desperation is growing as well because they've had a lot of negative news recently. Netflix is not doing well, even though they signed with them for apparently over $100 million. I doubt they've seen much of that so far. One of their 2 projects, Pearl, has already been canceled on them. And that was Meghan's led project. Their deal with Spotify, I think, was close to collapsing completely because they signed a contract with them in 2020. They released 1 trailer and 1 official episode in December 2020. And what happened after that? A whole year of absolutely nothing. Well over a year of absolutely nothing. It wasn't until, I believe, March that we finally got a new thing for Harry and Meghan. And the script had completely changed. So it went from Harry and Meghan being on the podcast together to it just being Meghan's podcast and it being archetypes. And there was kind of some rumors, and I think there's some validity to them, that this was a Hail Mary to keep the deal intact and to get their money. And I think there's some truth in that. Obviously, Meghan was pregnant, but it's not hard to produce a podcast when you basically don't have to do any of the heavy lifting and all the editing, all the background stuff, marketing. Everything else was done by somebody else. All you have to do is either interview somebody or talk about something. It's really not terribly hard. So the fact that they couldn't do it is incredibly concerning. And I think, again, with the loss of the Pearl contract as well, that should have gone through. Harry and Meghan are a huge name. Now, I disagree of, how good they actually are, but they'll bring eyeballs to Netflix. That Netflix decided, you know what, we really don't want to work with Harry and Meghan on this shows that the show probably either wasn't good or the production was very troubled. Because if it was kind of a surefire hit, they would have said, even if they canceled a lot of the rest of their animated shows, they would go, yeah, go ahead. There's also been some negative news about Better Up. Harry's recent commercial for Travelers got very much panned. His acting is awful. He's basically advocating for a holiday Big Brother that travels you around and reports you if you don't, utilizing sustainable principles while you're on vacation. There were also some backlash against his comments to the Today Show that, he needed to make sure the right people were around the Queen. Even though he's 5,000 miles away and caused her nothing but headaches over the last 2 years, only Harry, can make sure the Queen's okay. People just reacted incredibly negative to all of this. Harry and Meghan's public reputation is pretty much in the toilet. And so what do they need to do? They need to go to the Jubilee, because YA would give them a bit of good press, because they would get probably their picture with the Queen and her great grandkids, and they can sell that. They need content for Netflix. They haven't released anything from Netflix yet. Even though they've signed that deal, it'll be 2 years in the fall. And we don't even have a release date for Hearts of Invictus. Obviously, the Invictus Games weren't until April, but they've also been following Harry and Meghan around for some sort of reality TV show. So when will that air? Or is the Hearts of Invictus really about Harry and Meghan and not about the soldiers? If that's the case, people won't tune in for sure, because it should be about the soldiers, not about Harry and Meghan. And so again, all these questions remain, and their public image is very bad. So they have this invitation to the Jubilee. And what did they do? It was kind of interesting when the whole thing kind of went down, is that it was announced that yes, Harry and Meghan and Andrew would not be on the balcony. And then a couple of minutes later, all of a sudden Harry and Meghan's like, yes, we're going to the Jubilee. We're going to the Jubilee. Even though they've kind of been humiliated in that decision to kick them off the balcony. Again, so it was all kind of weird. So why are they doing this? Why are they even going? Like I said, it's desperation. They need that royal content. It is the only thing that makes them relevant to people right now. Harry and Meghan's brand is all over the place. They do the travelist environmental sustainability thing, but it often comes out more like lectures and do as I say, not as I do. They were advocating for COVID vaccines. They were advocating against Joe Rogan because he had some people on who questioned the vaccines. Then they're all about, they followed the BLM thing for a little bit, and then they were doing parental leave, and then they, donated a little bit to this place in Texas that lost a roof, like this women's shelter. And so they've just been all over the place in terms of and they did that weird tour of New York. Like, why? It was just content for Netflix. They went to some army base and talked to Afghanistan refugees after the whole Afghanistan thing fell apart. And so you just look at the whole thing and it's like, what is your brand? I think part of the problem is Harry and Meghan's brand is greed. They just want money. And Meghan spends like, she's a billionaires, which she's not. And Harry, I'm sure, is starting to bleed money pretty heavily, kind of financing all their expenditures in her $65,000 Invictus Games wardrobe. I'm not even joking. I did the calculations. It was very, very high for 3 days where she was not even the main purpose. She couldn't even wear branded gear. She couldn't even wear an Invictus shirt. Like, that's just sad, in my opinion. It's your husband's event. You can't even wear a shirt. Anyways, so they have this totally negative public perception. And so the Jubilee is an easy way to give them a little bump. But I think what's really interesting about all of this is that the palace has played the game to perfection, I think. Now, what do I mean about the game? So Meghan came in, and I think she was a hustler. She very much could be a decent influencer, but she's not a talented actress in the slightest, and she's not a creative. So, that's part of the reason why all their creative stuff is falling apart, is she's not creative. So they're doing all this so the palace looked at all this, and the palace, I think, from the jump, or at least over time, in Meghan's very brief time in the monarchy, saw right through her and knew that there really was no talent behind her. She talks a pretty game. She can deliver a speech very well. I will give her that. She can do, I think, some pretty good discussions where she sounds authoritative, but there's a lack of depth to her. So she wants to portray herself as very much this intellectual, but she really is not. Like, word salad people, I feel like, are people who really don't know what to say or are trying to walk around the issue to sound smart without actually saying something deeper. Now, perhaps I do that from time to time because, I'm doing this on the fly without a script. And so I have some notes, but I just kind of talk in front of the camera. So maybe that's a bit. But Harry and Meghan, again, just don't have the talent. And I think the palace caught on to her almost immediately. They saw her as somebody who was going to latched on to a very broken man and manipulated him, and that they were going to go do this Hollywood thing. And the palace was like, yes, we see through you. I'm sure they knew immediately that Harry and Meghan were never going to stay in Canada. They were going to go to LA. Obviously, because that's where, that is where her mom is. But that's where Meghan got rejected a bunch of times, is Hollywood. Hollywood was never interested in Meghan Markle because she didn't have talent. I'm sorry to say. She was not a talented actress. She had no creative, she had no really creativity either. So the palace is like, we're going to play the long game. And the palace is very, very good at this, because I know I'm the type of person as well who is very much like, strip them of their titles, strip them of their line of succession and the kids, because I think Meghan will use that connection to manipulate people, manipulate her kids, manipulate her husband. However, I think the palace knew at the end of the day that Harry and Meghan would always have failed at Hollywood. And I think they were very conscientious of that and very much allowed Harry and Meghan to have this venture because they knew Harry and Meghan would probably hang themselves with their own actions. They're not exceptionally bright. I remember reading Lady Colin Campbell's book. Actually, I listened to it on audio. So if you don't listen to audiobooks, that's a fun way to pass the time if you're driving. In America, we drive a lot, and it's just kind of easy. But I was listening to it, and she said so many times, Meghan's smart, she's smart, she's smart. And I'm like looking at this whole thing, Meghan's time in the spotlight going, she is not that smart. As she had thought a little bit beyond her own aggressive ambitions to really achieve Mexit, I think, in the way Harry and Meghan intended, she needed to be in the monarchy league for at least 5 or 10 years. That's how long Diana was when she kind of started branching out. Catherine's been in the British monarchy for 11 years. I think if she and William divorced, it would be a shock, but she would go on, I think, and be quite successful because she's built a relationship with the British people. Meghan kind of spit in the British people's face and went, you know, I kind of hate your country and we're going to leave and I'm going to be super successful because you guys never appreciated my greatness. And the palace is thinking to themselves, yeah, honey, you go ahead and do that. Because they knew she just didn't have the talent for what she wanted to do. She's a hustler, she has game, she can deliver a speech, but she's not much more than that, really, as far as I can tell and as far as I can see. Because again, she played this game way, way too short. She abruptly cut everything off before she could really create this bond with the British people. So when I think the palace extended this invitation, they were thinking of the Queen, and they were also thinking, this is a chance for us to show Harry and Meghan, even though they accepted, who is king of the castle, and that is the crown. And so I think Harry and Meghan will be a little humiliated on this trip because I think they'll be relegated to like third or fourth string. And what I mean by that is when Harry went to the Jubilee in 2012, he was on the balcony. This time he's not. When Harry went to the Jubilee and attended the service of Thanksgiving at St. Peter's, he was there in the front row with his brother and Catherine. I don't think that'll happen this year. I think it'll be the Cambridge kids. And I think Harry and Meghan will be put at least in the second row and maybe even away from being, let's say, behind Charles or Camilla or William or Catherine, just to kind of get them out of the main shot so they're not like directly behind the Queen. Because I think they did a little bit of mistake in that, you know, as they were leaving from Exit. And I think in March of 2020, they did have Meghan and Harry right behind the Queen. I don't think they'll do that this time. I think they'll kind of relegate Harry and Meghan to the background. Even in the concert, they'll do the same thing because Harry and Meghan left the British monarchy. Yes, Harry may still be high in the line of succession, but they're figuring out how to remove him from counselors of state. Same with Prince Andrew. I think Prince Andrew will go, but he will also be relegated to as behind the scenes as humanly possible. And I think the rest of the royal family really will take center stage. And I think this is something that kind of, you know, Harry and Meghan may not anticipate. I'm sure that's being explained to them because again, Harry and Meghan also kind of fumbled around with accepting this invitation because Harry claimed, well, I need security. You know, he wasn't safe enough without, you know, the Met security and like, you know, 20 cars surrounding him and Meghan because he's the sixth in line to the throne. And the sixth is more important than the second, third, fourth, or fifth. And what kind of happened with this as well is, but the thing with that is that Harry was always going to get security for this event. His family was always going to because it's a family event. It's kind of a high profile target. So they would have gotten security either way. And Harry's kind of, you know, even humbled and kind of humiliated himself by accepting this invitation because it's really gone against his own court case. And he lost a bit of that because he wanted a preliminary injunction. The judge said no recently. So Harry and Meghan, again, I think the Crown is looking at this whole thing and they're thinking the long game. And yes, Harry and Meghan are a huge annoyance to pretty much everyone at this point. But the palace is looking at the entire picture and they're going, okay, we look good if we invite Harry and Meghan because it makes us look like we're the gracious hosts to the two of them. Because you know Harry and Meghan aren't going to do it. If Meghan is a true narcissist, she wants to turn the screws to whoever she thinks was mean to her. She wants to turn the screws to you. She really just hates anybody who goes against her. So the palace is like, okay, fine, we'll invite you. The Queen will be happy. All of us will be happy because we know at this point the public is not that interested in you. So we can relegate you to like third or fourth string, and I don't think anybody will really care. So Harry and Meghan have set themselves up almost to be humiliated. And I think that's what, not in a bad way necessarily, but the palace is trying to tell them, you have left. You are not entitled to the things you once were. And here is an example to that. You're not in the first row anymore. You're in the third row. You are not standing next to your father. You are standing 12 steps behind your father. This is the way to do it. And it also tells the public as well, yes, Harry and Meghan are members of the family. However, they are not the central players anymore. They are not the future of the monarchy. it is the Cambridges. And I think that message will really, really resonate because people are looking to the Queen knowing she's having all these mobility issues and everything. And, you know, and Prince William and Charles just opened up the did the state opening of Parliament. And so really the torch is starting to slowly pass. And I think the Crown is thinking, okay, we have Harry and Meghan. They're pretty high up in the line of succession, but they're loose cannons. How can we manage them? And I think, again, Harry and Meghan have put themselves in a state where they are desperate because they need the crown. And the crown's going, yes, you do. And you know what? You always kind of needed it. Because Harry and Meghan made the biggest mistake of all, thinking that they were stars. That the reason people cared was because of them intrinsically as people. But I think Kate and William know this, and a lot of royals know this if they're smart, is that really it's the crown that shines. They're just attached to it, and ergo they shine as well. And Harry and Meghan, especially Meghan, really thought she finally achieved her star power because in her mind, she was always a star. But the palace was like, no, and the public was like, no. And so she's kind of been rejected again. So this is really just a strange way for Harry and Meghan to kind of engage in this just public humiliation. And I feel a bit bad for them, but they've also made their own choices when it comes to this situation. They're the ones who decide to leave, and they're the ones who did not give it enough time. As a royal, you will be criticized because you are taking taxpayer money to in part fund your lifestyle. And people want answers for that. If you wear a $100,000 dress, people want to know why. Why did you have to pay money for that dress when Catherine wore an even more gorgeous dress that probably cost less than 10 grand? Why did you wear an ugly $100,000 dress and Catherine, who's the future queen, could easily wear a gorgeous $10,000 dress? Catherine does a really good job of, you know, that I'm thinking about that James Bond gold dress. That dress was magnificent, but it wasn't horrifically pricey because Jenny Packham did kind of come out with other things other people can buy. So Catherine stays very much in this good space. Meghan just took advantage of everything. And in order to sell their brand, Harry and Meghan are finding out, and I think Netflix is finding out too, that the only thing that makes Harry and Meghan sellable is their connection to the crown. And if that goes away, what are Harry and Meghan? Just a C-list actress and a guy who could barely graduate high school. And neither one of them apparently are very good producers, because if they were, they'd have something by this point. That we don't even have a release date for The Heart of Invictus is a little bit concerning because, you know, obviously they needed some of the coverage from the event, but I would think that would be coming out at least in the fall. So maybe we'll get something like that soon. But anyways, guys, this I think was kind of complicated, but let me know what you think. Do you think that, you know, the monarchy is really going to put the screws to Harry and Meghan and kind of really put them in their place? Or do you think Harry and Meghan will try to up the game and really trample all over the Queen's Platinum Jubilee? Although if they do that, again, that plays into the crown's kind of going thread, is that just to let Harry and Meghan hang themselves. So Harry and Meghan are really in a lose-lose situation. They will probably be humiliated. But if they do too much to kind of take attention away from the Queen, they'll be equally in a bad shape as they were when they started, if not worse. So really, Harry and Meghan, if you go to the Platinum Jubilee, some people are questioning whether or not you do. I think you should definitely introduce your children to the Queen, but tread very carefully because I don't think there's a lot of margin for error here. And I think you guys are really being, I hate to say it, I think you guys are really in a precarious state if you want to make this Hollywood thing work. I don't think you have a ton of support in Hollywood, and I don't think there's a lot of interest in Britain. And so you guys are kind of up a creek without a paddle. So it'll be interesting to see how they do on this trip, but I don't think it'll go well for them. Or if it does, it was because they basically stayed in the background, made no fuss, and went home. And we know Meghan can't do that. So I think they'll probably try some sort of shenanigans, but again, it'll play into the palace's thesis and continue to bury Harry and Meghan in bad publicity. And it gives them more ammunition to strip their titles at some point and their place in the line of succession. So the palace always wins, because this is the thing. The palace is a 1,000-year-old institution. And much like in poker, the crown or the house always wins. Pretty much always. There's been a couple cases where that doesn't happen, But at the end of the day, there are systems within the monarchy, and this is every monarchy, that is about protecting the crown above all else. If you are not going to follow the lines, the palace will abandon you. And Harry and Meghan desperately need that attention. So guys, again, let me know what you think about this video. Let me know what you think about kind of my theory. Do you think Harry and Meghan will be humiliated, or do you think they'll cause a fuss or be very obnoxious during the Jubilee? I can see both situations happening, but I really do think this is a time for the palace to be very clear about where Harry and Meghan stand, not only with Harry and Meghan, but with the broader public as well. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.